Hello and welcome to Rajya Sabha Television. You're watching India's World with me, Frank Rausen Pereira. The Trump administration has said that China's strategic intentions and trajectory in the Indo-Pacific are destabilizing and counterproductive, reiterating its pledge to maintain the region free and open. A highly placed defense official during a congressional hearing told lawmakers that the US will continue to pursue a constructive, result-oriented relationship with China, but it will not accept policies or actions that threaten to undermine the international rules-based order. Testifying before the same subcommittee, another official said free and open use to describe the Indo-Pacific region were chosen with care because they embody the principles the US sought to embed in the region. Acknowledging India's leadership role in the Indian Ocean, the US discussed potential missile defense cooperation with India as part of its effort to deepen the bilateral strategic partnership. New Delhi is set to play a major role in the Pentagon strategy, which is looking forward to increasing its influence in the Indo-Pacific region. On this edition of India's World, we will analyze the strategy for the Indo-Pacific. Joining me on the program today are Prabhu Dayal, former ambassador, Vice Admiral Shekhar Sinha, retired defense expert, and Professor Swaran Singh, School of International Studies, JNU. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on this edition of India's World. Admiral, I'd like to begin the program with you. Let's try and put into perspective and try and understand first, why is the Indo-Pacific so important, and why is there a battle of supremacy, if I could call it that, in the region?
See, if you look at the map, you'll find that Indo-Pacific is right, Indian Ocean is right in the middle, where it joins the Pacific with the Atlantic through the Mediterranean and the Red Sea. Majority of the sea lines of communication pass through this area. All these days, the US had a complete sort of leadership of this area. And now China is slowly encroaching into that territory, basically because China wants to replace the US from #1 position in the world. So US looks at any war or any contest with the world view, and therefore they're right. I would say that they should have woken up much earlier, to be honest, because we have known this for a long time. Our assessment has been such. Our government, our military has been making the preparations because we are not going to fight a world sort of battle. We are going to fight a battle on the borders with China. We are going to possibly have a minor skirmishes in the Indian Ocean. So India's interest lies in the Indian Ocean, not beyond that. The US is rightly worried because, economically they are going to get sort of put to #2 position not very far off from now. But militarily, the Chinese are trying very hard.
Right. Ambassador, what's at stake for India in the region?
Well, India has been deeply aware since a long time that Chinese strategy in the Indo-Pacific region is impinging on our security needs. China, as you know, has been setting up its String of Pearls project from the Chinese mainland all the way across to Port Sudan on the Gulf of Aden, Gulf of Hormuz. And some of these pearls which are being developed encircle India. Most significantly, the port of Gwadar, which Pakistan has given to China to run, manage and set up, develop. And also, to a great extent, Hambantota port, which the Chinese built for Sri Lanka, but then Sri Lanka was not able to make payments and eventually had to give it to China on a 99-year lease. China is also developing the Chittagong port and has announced plans to build a port on the Bay of Bengal in Burma, which is not too far from our own Visakhapatnam port. So the Chinese strategy in our part of the world is definitely aimed at encircling India and limiting our own outreach. The Chinese project in the context of One Belt, One Road, particularly the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, which is a very, very important part of the OBOR, is certainly set to make Pakistan more and more dependent on China, because already the indebtedness of Pakistan is in excess of 64 billion, and it is estimated that it will keep growing to the tune of around $90 billion. So Pakistan, which is already hostile to us, will become more and more dependent on China and will become more and more a pawn in the hands of China. So our security needs are definitely impacted. Now, at the same time, many of the countries where the Chinese are building these sort of ports, like for instance Bangladesh, have said that they will not allow Chinese military presence there. But you know, things change. The governments in Bangladesh and again in Maldives and of course in Sri Lanka may be friendly towards us now, but the governments could change,
right,
and their policies, attitudes could also change, and the Chinese military presence in these ports could also significantly increase. Now, I would also like to say that more and more countries are beginning to realize that the Chinese debt trap is a reality.
Right.
And it should be noted that Myanmar was originally offered $7 billion for the development of that port on the Bay of Bengal, but it requested that the amount should be scaled down. It is settled only for $1.7 billion because it is aware of the debt trap. But not many countries are, and more countries are finding themselves entrapped by the Chinese in this way, and the Chinese are able to exert their sway and decide what policy should be followed.
Right.
They are able to make these countries follow the Chinese line, and that's a matter of worry for us.
Right. Professor, who are the other players really as far as this particular region is concerned, and what's at stake for them also really? Because several of them have tried to, fight it out with the Chinese. The Philippines has taken China to The Hague as well. The court passed a ruling. We all know what has happened after that. So it's a precarious and a tricky situation for some of these smaller countries in the region as well.
I think what Indo-Pacific debate underlines is this whole enormous transformation in geopolitics. And since in 20th century, much of the world was led by military alliances, military bases that made United States the important player. Now, all the friends and allies of United States, other than United States, is going to be impacted, as was just said by Ambassador Prabhu Dayal. Rise of China is really changing equations, not only between United States and China, which is why United States has come out with this report underlining what is happening in Indo-Pacific, which is where it is trying to reinforce its own control. So the friends and allies of United States have to be now really kind of taking care of maintaining fine balance, because most of them still continue to have a very strong security relationship with the United States, but all of them have a very strong relationship with China, economic relationship with China. And I think they have to really find out how to balance that relationship between these two major players. And that is where the difficulty for these smaller nations is. But the truth is that the old system of Pacific Command and Central Command and Africa Command is no longer the dominant narrative. Dominant narrative is about $2.5 trillion of trade that China has from east of Africa till the shores of United States. And that is what is making these two oceans look like one. And that is the new geopolitics. And China is not only having a major trade, but investing billions of dollars under Belt and Road Initiative. So that's the truth, and United States is somewhere losing that supremacy and exclusive control. And I think that is an anxiety which is shared by all its friends and allies, including India. So India would be seen as an important player as well, and India is trying to do the fine balance. For example, on Indo-Pacific debate, starting from the June speech at Shangri-La of Prime Minister, India is constantly underlining need to bring in China into the Indo-Pacific debate. In fact, in our annual bilateral maritime dialogue, we have brought this on the agenda. India also is extremely reluctant to put any military connotations to the Quad, for example. So India is one country which is directly seeing itself impacted and is trying to sort of maintain equilibrium through equidistance kind of a thing. So the report that has come out from Pentagon this week is nothing new. I mean, most of other nations in region have been saying similar things. The fact that United States says the similar thing brings a certain weight to the same argument. But fundamentally, China is a challenge which is up there, and we have to really find out how to deal with that.
Right.
And I think all these nations are trying in various ways.
You know, we should be more interested, clearly, Admiral, as to what's happening with us and in our immediate neighborhood. The ambassador spoke about string of pearls. Do we have an answer, really, as far as the string of pearls are concerned? You know, several people talk about Iron Curtain and so on and so forth. Is that workable, doable? How far through is it, really?
No, he's quite right. The string of pearls, you know, Sri Lanka, the ports in Myanmar and, you know, Bangladesh, Mali nearly became a sort of captive of the debt, ongoing debt trap. So hopefully it will get stopped now. And then you have a base in Djibouti and you have now in Gwadar. We need to do a little more. As far as just the military power is concerned, we still have a lot of edge on many issues, because now what happens at sea is that, you know, if you keep a surveillance on the choke points from where this traffic actually flows into the Indian Ocean, then you get the warning of the incoming traffic much in advance. You know, 750 nautical miles to be precise, 1500 kilometers on either side.
Even the sophisticated submarines? And,
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. So what you do is that you keep a track, and thereafter you get enough time, because they don't come very quickly. You get enough time to prepare yourself as to find out what is he up to. You see, China's problem is not that why is he here, because freedom of navigation is also applicable to China.
Yeah.
But he does it very, very opaquely. He doesn't tell you what is he doing. He will suddenly surface close to your shore. So that is a worry which we can handle, or we are handling. But the issue is that China-Pakistan collusion is the worrisome point, because Pakistan is here 24 hours, his home is here, China's home is not here, but Pakistan's home is here, and they have made him a sort of proxy. Pakistan is a proxy for China, so whenever there is a trouble to be created militarily, it will tell the Pakistanis to do it.
You know, talking about military trouble, Admiral, you know, the Pentagon report says after Djibouti, China is scouting for a few more military bases really on foreign shores. Cambodia and a few other countries are mentioned as far as this Pentagon report is concerned. Is that a worrying sign?
Of course it is a worrying sign. As I said, America looks at the world as its own sort of military leadership area. And anywhere, any infringement, the Americans will get worried. But as you said, we are more worried about the Indian Ocean. We are more worried about what Pakistan does in collusion with China. With China, as Professor Swan Singh said, that India has been very careful. Prime Minister in his speech, he says inclusive Indo-Pacific. So it has given a lot of hope to the Chinese. Hopefully that, you know, India will, you know, follow this up very much. I was in Beijing immediately after that, and they said so, that we are very happy with your Prime Minister's speech. So I said, but you also have to walk the talk. Because what you're doing in Sri Lanka, what you're doing in Maldives, Maldives election was not over then, and what you're doing in Gwadar, that worries us. So obviously there has to be a meeting ground where we, on one issue, we cooperate with China, on other issue, while we are cautious, we will be competing, very much a competition, and another one, we want to avoid a contest.
Right.
But as far as the maritime power is concerned, I can see that next 8-9 years is a clear window before China really becomes a military threat all by itself.
Right.
So that is my overall sort of thought.
So we have to watch out for that, is
Yeah,
what
we
you're
have to watch out for
suggesting.
that.
Right. You know, Ambassador.